Welcome to the Rinkside Rundown podcast, showcasing the incredible women's hockey players from around the world through compelling interviews and discussions alongside your host, Chris Sinclair. Hello and welcome back to the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Today, I'm joined by friend of the show, Emily Rickwood, a defender who played this past season with AIK of the SDHL and who is, fun fact, one of the very first guests on this podcast. Welcome back. I've been really looking forward to chatting with you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic, and even better now that we get a chance to reconnect. So this is fantastic.
Yes, same here. I'm excited to be back.
One of the very first reoccurring guests on the show as well. So you have that honor to hold, put on your mantle, if you will.
Yes, awesome.
And before we get started, for all of you who are interested in learning more about Emily's career to this point, please make sure to check out episode number 5. Like I said, early on in this podcast, but episode number 5, because we're just going to dive in. We're going to talk about this past season as well as how things look or what things look like moving forward. So make sure to check out that episode. And without further ado, let's just dive in. So Emily, let's talk about this past season. What were your thoughts on your own game, but also, just how the team performed, how you thought it went, especially playing overseas for the first time?
Yeah, so I thought our season didn't go exactly how we wanted it to go, obviously. We didn't have as many wins as we would like to have, but I was so proud of all the girls. Like, we showed up every single day ready to battle and continued on, and we definitely had some adversity. We had a coaching change, so I was just so proud of our group for sticking together and pushing through all of that stuff. And I think personally, obviously, when you're not winning a lot of games, my season didn't go exactly how I would have hoped. But I did get to focus a lot on my defensive game and help to grow that, and power play, penalty kill. So really all aspects of the game got to grow. I would have liked to have had a few more points and maybe a little bit better plus minus. But I mean, working with what we got here, I think I kind of capitalized on what I could in that situation.
So, there's a lot to unpack there, but could we talk a little bit about maybe what it was like to have that coaching change and then have to learn a new system and, how to, maybe, connect with that new coach and all that sort of stuff. Could you talk, like, what's that for people who haven't necessarily experienced maybe pro sports at all, or like myself, but what it's like to have to adjust to a new coach and a new system and being put in place?
Yeah, so I think to start, obviously, with our team specifically, I know this can be the case in other scenarios too, but there's always kind of like a division of, I want this coach to stay, I want a new coach. So our team really had to battle through that. There was obviously some strong opinions on both sides, so we had to have a bunch of team meetings and kind of work through that. And then ultimately we decided, and as well as the coach, he decided it would be best for this team to kind of get a fresh new start. So we kind of were hoping to stay with some similar systems, but we did have a young team, so we were really trying to pound those points into them. So to switch, we didn't want to have too much confusion, so we tried to keep it all the same. But I think it was a hard point for a lot of us because we were up in the air with our feelings about getting a new coach and having our other one leave, and a lot of uncertainty. But I think we kind of talked through it. We talked with our old coach, we talked with our new coach, and I think the transition was very smooth. Our new coach came in, he was great. He wanted to connect with all of us. He wanted to meet with all of us. So he got to know us on the personal level too, which I think is extremely important. And so I think it was a smooth transition, but obviously it's hard. And with the different opinions, it was a lot to work through, but we did it, and it was pretty smooth.
Nice. And could you maybe like talk a little bit about, obviously there, like you had mentioned, there's a difference of opinions, but you're a team and you still have to, at the end of the day, you still have to come together and support one another and play with and along with these other players as well. What was the dynamic like maybe early on after the coaching change, especially when there were those difference of opinions?
I think for the people who were wanting a coaching change, there was a bit of a spark of energy. It was like, okay, this is a fresh start. Let's reset, like new mindset. We're going to show up every day. We're going to create new goals for our team. And then for the people who are maybe like, I don't know, like I like the stability we have now, I think they did a good job of persevering as well. And all of us as a group, I mean, we just showed up and we focused on what we could control. And that was just getting better every day on or off the ice. So I think we really had to just focus on like what I guess, like I said, like what we could control and just kind of put everything else aside and just like dial down on what was right at our hands.
And you had, you'd mentioned that the season didn't necessarily go exactly the way that you, and we can probably extrapolate that to
Mhm.
many or all of the rest of the team.
Yeah.
It didn't go the way that you wanted it to. How do you go through a season, and especially when there's a lot, when there are a lot more downs than there are ups, and then how do you also reflect on and still be able to extrapolate some of the positives from the season?
I think a big part of it was our leadership group. They came every single day with a positive outlook and they tried to pick everybody else up. And I think it kind of rubbed off on everyone else. And it was a big part of our team and our identity going forward that we need to be there for each other because coaches can change. You can get whatever refs, you can have whatever opponent, but if the group of girls in the room aren't clicking, aren't getting along, aren't picking each other up, then we're not going to win regardless of all of the outside factors. So I think they did a great job coming in every day and making sure we were battling our hardest, working our hardest off ice, and doing all that kind of stuff. So they really motivated the group.
Could you talk a little bit? I think obviously you being in that room and the rest of us not being in that room, and maybe not have had the opportunity to be in a locker room, especially when things are tough. Could you talk a little bit about and maybe highlight some of the individuals? Obviously, you've mentioned the leadership group, but maybe highlight some of the conversations or some of the actual individuals who really help to inspire the team, but maybe you more specifically.
Yeah, so some of the conversations they were tough conversations. A lot of people probably know how it can get tough sometimes when you're down or in a rut. And I think the biggest thing for us was I kind of touched on it, but like we were not being very positive towards each other. So it was more of pointing the finger and like looking for the things that we couldn't control, being like, well, that was your player who scored, or that was you, you shouldn't have taken that penalty, or why didn't the coaches tell us this? So it was a lot of just like pointing. So we had to have a bunch of team meetings and sit down and say, look, we need to rephrase things. It was even stuff as small as in the gym. If you weren't doing an exercise properly, like for example, this happened to me. I was doing med ball throws and it was a like a relay between two teams and you had to do 5 med ball throws and then run back and touch, and I was the last person and I was like doing the med ball throws and I guess I didn't like extend my arm fully as I should have, and one of the players was like, you're cheating, like you can't do that, you can't and I was just like, whoa, like it was not intentional, like we're in a rush, like we're just trying to do whatever. I probably could have extended my arm a little more, but just like little things like that. And then we had to sit down as a group and say, look, this is an example. How about instead of saying you're cheating, you're doing this, let's flip it and make it positive and say, hey, just a reminder, let's make sure we keep our arms straight when we're doing our med ball throws. So like turning it into the positive and trying to encourage each other. And like even in practice, there would be some times where it's like nobody's skating 100% out here, like you're not receiving any passes, you're not doing this, and we had to stop and say, okay, how about we just give a friendly reminder, like because it was bringing people down and nobody was like enjoying themselves, and we are like, if you take the fun out of the game, then it makes it like 10 times worse. So we were like, let's just say, let's give it our 100%, like point out the people who are giving 100% and lift them up, and it's going to want to make other people do the same good things as well. So it was definitely tough, but I think the main thing was switching how we talk to each other about things that we needed to work on.
Yeah, and that reminds me of it's the old, instead of saying I have to do this thing, it's that I get to do this thing. And
Yeah.
when you shift that mind, or when you make that mind shift,
Yeah.
mindset shift, there we go. Then I knew I'd get there. But that makes a huge impact on how you approach any sort of activity, whether it's in the gym or wherever it may be, right? And that's kind of, as you were talking, that's kind of what came to mind. And it sounds as though those mindset shifts. I got it right the first time that time. It sounds as though, again, regardless of the fact that the season didn't go as well as you wanted it to, you had the coaching change. It still sounds as though you're able now to reflect on the season and think really positively of it. Is that
Oh, yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, you learn something from every single season, whether that's, like, how I want to play, how I don't want to play, or what kind of teammate I want to be, or what kind of teammate I don't want to be. So there's always a way you can spin it and like take what you've learned from that season. But I think like battling through adversity, especially for me, like I think I grew a ton as a person and a player just because like I was going through all of this while also being like away from home and a time change, not being able to like see friends or family. So it was a lot. And I think like mentally, it just helped me like persevere through adversity. And I think I'm more likely to be able to handle situations like that better in the future now because of it.
Well, that's the perfect segue because I wanted to learn a little bit more. So great job once again, as always. I wanted to learn a little bit more about, you know, when you personally think back on this season, and especially again, like you've mentioned, this is the first time you've played overseas. You're so far away from home.
Mm.
What were some of the lessons that you learned about yourself this season? Not just on the ice. Obviously, I want to hear about that, but
Mhm.
also for you personally off the ice as well.
I think for me, I became a lot more confident in a way because my family here, like we're really close. So anytime something happens, I like run it past my parents or I'm like, oh, what should I respond to this like email or something? And like it's something so small, but being over there and not having access to talk to them all the time. And with the time change, I'm up for 6 to 8 hours before they even wake up. So if something happened, like I had to handle it on my own. And so I feel like those kind of things, I just learned to trust myself more and be like, okay, I can make this decision or I am capable of like doing something like this. And then I think overall that just made everything else easier, like taking public transit. Like I don't know if I talked about this before, but like that's something I didn't even think of doing in my hometown here that I know like the back of my hand. And then like going over to Sweden and I was like, okay, I need to go here, 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 and I need to take this bus to this metro and do all these transfers. And like it was just easy and it became natural. So I think just like trusting myself and being able to make those decisions.
So I think this begs the question, how do you think, and I feel like the answer is pretty obvious, but how do you think that newfound confidence in, you know what, like I can take like the bus, the metro system, it's not that scary. Like I got this. How do you think that translated to your performance on the ice and how you showed up for each game?
I think confidence all around. If you can grow your confidence off the ice, it'll help you grow your confidence on the ice. And I think just feeling more like independent, I guess, so to speak. I just was trusting myself more on the ice too. Like if I was making a decision or if I need to make a call for like say our power play group, if we were talking about something, I'd be like, okay, here's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Do you want to try this? So just being able to speak up more, bring that leadership role, which I feel like I've kind of always had a bit of just with like a big personality and everything. But I definitely think I was trusting myself more when making those decisions for myself or for like a group of us.
It's crazy when you think about the it's like if you reflect on it and said me taking the bus in a new country did more for me, both on and off the ice than I could ever have expected. It's kind of crazy to think about. It's like it seems like something so small, but it
Yeah.
made such a big difference.
Oh, for sure. And I think, like, again, even just something as small as taking the bus, it gave me that like sense of not like I would say freedom, not that I didn't have freedom, but like I didn't have a car obviously in Sweden. So it was limited. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna walk to the bus stop, take the bus to the rink, and then that's it. So it gave me that freedom. Okay, if I do want to go to the mall or if I want to go here, like I can do that stuff. I'm not trapped in my apartment, which I think helps with like the mental aspect of it as well.
Well, especially being in a new country, right? Like
Yeah.
you like the if you're confined to basically you go to the rink and you're at
Yeah.
home, like that really drains at you mentally, eh?
Yeah, yeah, it's tough, and I think throughout the winter when it was really dark and, we practiced late at night, so we weren't seeing much daylight, it was hard to kinda get out and do things, and not having a car makes that obviously a bit harder, but once I would force myself to get up and do things, even if it was going to the grocery store, I felt so much better, so it definitely made a difference.
Okay, great. Um, you had mentioned it a little bit earlier on around some of the aspects of your game, power play. defensive play, all that sort of thing. But I kind of want to dive a little bit more into, now that the season is over and it's given you a chance to kind of reflect on the season, your progress, especially playing in an entirely different league, um,
Mhm.
with players you don't, for the most part, or maybe all, like entirely haven't played with before. What are some of, the certain areas of your game that you now want to be really focused on in this off season?
So I think I kind of talked about like growing my defensive game, and even at UNH before this I was really focused on growing my defensive game, and so now this summer I really want to focus on getting back to working on my offensive ability because like mentioned before I was very offensive before going to college and even my first year of college. So I want to get back to that, and I want to help contribute to on the score sheet as well, get some points, get a better plus minus, some power play points. So I'm really working on just being patient in the offensive zone. Like once I get past that offensive blue line, just taking my time and not rushing with the puck and trying to make plays as opposed to maybe just dumping it and changing or going in and trying to throw a shot on net. So I really want to focus on my offensive zone.
Did you feel as though, like, you maybe were a little bit uncomfortable with the idea of playing more on the defensive side? And as you mentioned, like, you would exit the zone and then it would be a dump, and then you would change rather than actually, activating in the offensive zone. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I would say I definitely get a little more nervous with the puck once I get into the offensive zone because like it's kind of foreign territory for a defenseman. But I think another big part of this year was unfortunately it is what it is. We were in our D zone a ton. So by the time we actually got the puck out, I had been on the ice for 45 seconds to a minute. So I was like, I need to change because
Mhm.
if I go in and it turns over and I'm stuck in my end again for another 45 seconds, I'm not going to be able to move. So it was just more like smart, like trying to make smart decisions. Whereas, okay, 45 seconds, I need to get off.
This and we're going to kind of get into sort of the minutia of, training plans and all these sorts of things in just a moment. But I kind of want to know, like, if you're going to go into the off season and you're going to be focused on sort of now getting back to what has been your bread and butter, which is a lot more of the offensive side of your game. What kind of training, and don't go into your giant training plan because we're going to
Yeah.
get into that in a moment, but like specifically when it comes to that shift going from, you went, the knob went from offensive to defensive and now it's back to, you want to bring it back to offensive.
Mhm.
Speaking specifically about that, what is it that you're going to, or how is it that you're going to approach your off-season training when it comes, again, specifically to that, because we're going to get into the rest of it in a moment.
Yeah, I think one, just this is kind of general, but obviously working on my skills with the puck because if I can feel more confident with the puck, then I won't be so like wanting to get rid of it, so to speak. And I think another thing for me, this helps a ton. It may sound silly to other people, but like I'm in a men's league with my dad, and that's just like fun hockey for me. I do it twice a week. Like that's just for my enjoyment. And I really try and focus there on holding on to the puck. And, it's not high pressure situations, but just getting the feeling of rushing the puck, getting in, waiting for someone to come in, make a pass, they get a shot on net. So it's something that's so small, but that's just really where I grow my confidence over the summer is playing in those situations and really trying to focus on the offensive side.
It sounds as though you need to continue channeling that confidence that you built from taking the transit.
Yeah.
I feel like that's exactly that.
Yeah.
As you were saying it, I was like, it's all just about confidence. And you were
Yeah.
able to rock it over in Sweden, in a brand new country, somewhere you've never been, and you were
Yeah.
able to figure it out. So you got this.
Yeah. I got to bring that confidence back.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. It'll come back. It'll come back. I guess also when it comes to reflecting on your season and being like, you know what, I want to improve on this, I want to improve on that. Not to say, like, obviously there are things to celebrate, but
Yes.
unfortunately, this is all sports. It's results driven. It's always, what could I be doing better? It's never
Mhm.
celebrating. Unfortunately, it's never
Yeah.
celebrating what you did well. You did so many things well, and I want to highlight that. But I also want to ask, um, actually, you know what? Let's highlight that for a second.
Okay.
What do you think you did? What was an aspect of your game this past season that you're really proud of? Let's talk about that. Let's highlight that before we get into my next question.
I think something that I really tried to focus on and then executed fairly well was just making a good first pass out of the zone, helping the breakout get out. Because, like I said, sometimes we were stuck in our end for 45 minutes or 45 seconds to a minute. And sometimes when I would get that puck on my stick at the 40-second mark of my shift, it's just so tempting to flick it up or try and get it down for icing. But I really tried to focus on being patient and making a pass out so that we could get it in deep and then get off and change in like a safe situation, so to speak. So I think really just trying to start that breakout.
And it sounds as though your time with your dad's men's league is going to be like, again, you said it may sound silly, but it does sound like it could really help you to, even in those, it's more of like it sounds like it's more of a casual kind of experience, but just being able to continue focusing on those little things like carrying the puck, that outlet pass, those sorts of things that just kind of like you slow down the game and you can really pace yourself and see the game in a bit of a different way would easily and successfully translate to your next season.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we play all the time in such high pressure situations that for me this is just a good time to really bring it down to that low pressure and just bring the enjoyment kind of back into it. Not that I don't enjoy hockey, obviously I love it, but like just being in that fun environment where there's no pressure. Like if I make a mistake and they score, I'm not getting in trouble, nothing's happening. So it's just like more just to have fun and bring that enjoyment back and confidence.
Okay. Now, I want to know, when you assess your game, um, who are some of those people? Obviously, you're going to be probably the most prominent voice in your head, where it's like, hey, I should have done this better. I could have done that better. But who are some of those other people? Um, we'll reflect specifically on this past season, who are saying like, hey, I noticed this thing about your game, and what impact have those conversations had on you?
So actually, this is a funny story. I would say like my dad 100%, he coached me all the way growing up until junior. And so our games would sometimes be at 12 on Sundays, which was 6 a.m. here. So he was up at 5:45, like texting me good luck. And he sits and watches every single game and will text me throughout the game as it happens. So like if I make a really good pass, he'll be like, that was a great outlet pass, like way to keep your feet moving around the net. Or if I like get beat on a one-on-one, he's like, remember, like try and angle this way or do something. So every single time like I make either like a good or bad play, he's commenting on it. And then after the game's done, I get to go through and look at all the texts and see like what I did good and what I did bad. And that has helped me a ton because like the coaches obviously are doing the best they can, but there's 20 however many of us on the bench they're trying to give feedback to throughout the game. So they don't always see the little things. So having my dad literally break down my game shift by shift, and then I can go back and watch and be like, oh, that was a good player. Yeah, he's right. Maybe I should have like cut back there. So that has helped a ton. And I take everything he says and try and put it into the next game.
And we will be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Durant Barristers. Durant Barristers is a proud supporter of women's sports and is an inaugural sponsor of the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Durant Barristers provides legal services for athletes, coaches, officials, administrators, and sports associations of all sizes, from minor associations to national sports organizations and professional sports environments. We routinely assist with safe sport complaints, investigations, anti-doping, harassment, discrimination, abuse, and governance matters. We also provide representation on general civil litigation matters, including employment and business disputes of all sizes. Durant Barristers founder Aaron Durant also provides mediation and arbitration services to assist in managing disputes in a timely and affordable manner. Durant Barristers has generously offered their best ever discount to fans and supporters of women's hockey. Mention the Rinkside Rundown podcast to, wait for it, receive 15% off all your accounts with Durant Barristers for the duration of your relationship with the firm. To learn more about Durant Barristers, visit www.durantbarristers.com. That's www.durantbarristers.com. Thank you to Durant Barristers for sponsoring this episode.
And now, back to the show.
It's almost like he's an eye in the sky, but from across the ocean.
Yeah, he does it for my brother too. He's done it for my teammates as well. He does it for he just sends texts throughout the game and they love it. Everybody loves it. They're like, I love this feedback. It's so good. So he's like the team like dad, I guess, where he just lets everyone know how they're doing.
That's fantastic. And it's great too when, again, it's important to be able to highlight, hey, I saw this as an opportunity, but also you did this thing really well. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of those things that, especially in sport, we often kind of gravitate towards, as I kind of mentioned earlier. It's all about like, you need to be better, you need to be better, we need to win, we need to win. But you also forget about how important it is to actually be like, you
Yeah.
know what? Great play.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Keep doing that. And like
Yeah.
how much that goes for you.
Yeah, exactly. I think it just builds the confidence because then I can say, okay, I did do something right. Because it's hard when you're only getting like constructive feedback. You're like, okay, well, what did I do right? Like, what should I continue to do? So to be able to get both just kind of helps grow my game so much.
Absolutely. And that goes for any sort of
Yeah.
workplace, not just sports, but like
Yeah.
when you're only ever hearing negatives, you're like,
Yeah.
I thought I did well at least once today, but I
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? So we kind of alluded to it just a moment ago, but I want to learn a little bit. And again, this is the minutia of being a hockey player, where it's, like we as a fan of the sport and as someone who's only ever played it at the, I would say, worst level, but it was only me being at my worst. I don't get a chance, and not all of us get a chance to kind of get into the mind of a hockey player, get into the mind of, what does off-season training look like? What does season training look like? What do training or like training plans, meal plans, all that sort of stuff. So that's something I thought would be really interesting to kind of dive into now. And, now that you're again in the off season, you're back home. What goes into developing both a training plan for you, so workouts, all that sort of stuff,
Mhm.
but also equally as important is the nutrition plan.
Yeah, so I think to start, before I was obviously at UNH and they would give you workout cards for the summer, so it was kind of easy to just follow that. But moving out of college, I have like a personal trainer, so to speak. It's like a big gym here in my town, and it's just mainly for hockey players. So he works with people in like the OHL, AHL, you name it, and he's got them there. So I think the biggest thing for me now is just being in that competitive environment because going to like a local gym is great if they have everything you need, but I found I wasn't really, not that I wasn't pushing myself, but like I didn't really know what weights to use. I didn't know if I could go higher. I didn't know if I'd have a spot. So now being at this gym, and we've started with 3 days a week and then we're going up to 4 next week. And so he's really helped me. Like I'm doing like 25 pounds more than I would have ever picked up just because he's like, you can do it. Like try. If you fail, that's the point. You want to get better. So being in that competitive environment has helped a ton. And I love it and I'm going to keep going back. And I think again on the ice probably 2 or 3 times a week as well, including that men's hockey. Um, Nutrition wise, the biggest thing for me was making sure I was getting enough protein. That's huge in building muscle. That's like the number one thing they tell you, and obviously hydrating enough. Those were my two main goals. Um, I also don't eat like red meat, so I need to do a lot to get the amount of protein. So just sitting down and he has all the people that you need to work with there, so like a nutritionist and everything. And just sitting down saying, "Okay, you need this many grams of protein a day." So he helped me find like a good protein powder. So I'm taking that once a day, like having a high protein breakfast and just kind of when to eat your meals and when to incorporate like meat, fruit, all that kind of stuff. It's been you learn all that stuff throughout like playing high level hockey, but I think really now having that like trainer has been a huge help.
Could you talk a little bit more about these workout cards that you get or that you have had in the past
Yeah, so like from UNH or what I'm doing now.
from UNH? Sorry.
Yeah. So typically it would be, I think 3 to 4 days, and they just give you like your set card and you have like a workout each day and you can write down what you're doing. But typically it's like full body almost every day, but you kind of go through like a big dynamic warm up, stretching, all that kind of stuff. And then mobility is huge. I think, especially at UNH, we really focused on like hip mobility and everything. So almost after every exercise, like if we would do bench press, there would be like a stretch with it. So we would pair that up. So we were really getting both the strength and mobility part of it. And you just kind of, then there was conditioning at the end of the day. And then you would just fill in your results and just do that throughout. And they would switch it every 2 weeks. It would be a new workout. And then you write down your stuff, you report back to like your strength and conditioning coach. And then he kind of puts in what weight you should be at. So it's nice because you have guidance, you know what you're doing. And then, like I said, every 2 weeks that changes. And then every week it gets harder and harder and you go up in weights. So it's really nice and easy to follow a card like that.
Fantastic. I feel like that's something we could all maybe introduce into our lives. So that's
Yeah.
great. Um, when we talk about fitness and nutrition, I want to know um, what was your favorite meal that
Mhm.
you've had an opportunity to experience? We're going to get into more of the 20 questions thing in a moment, but
Yeah.
I didn't want to forget this. But what were your favorite meals? And what were, like, specifically when you reflect on this past season and what you want to be on the ice next season, were there specific workouts that you knew would help target that specific skill?
Yeah, so like I mainly I want to focus on upper body. So getting a harder shot, being able to put more flex on my stick, all those kind of things. So I it's like satisfying when you go to work out and you can like feel your muscles sore after and you're like, I know that's gonna help me on the ice. I know that's gonna help my shot get better. And like lower body wise, I've always been pretty decent. So but it's always still just nice to be like, I feel faster now because like I'm working on trap bar deadlift and my quads are burning, so that's going to help me on the ice. So it is nice to finally also see results too. Like every week when you can go up in weight, you're like I'm getting better. So that's huge as well.
Okay, and tell us favorite meal,
Oh, I
or
would say
one of them, anyways.
okay. I would say in especially in Sweden, I loved a good burrito bowl. So you incorporate chicken and rice, the main thing that everybody eats to get protein and fuel themselves. And so I would just put some rice and chicken together and then add like tomatoes, lettuce, cheese, sour cream, and like some chipotle seasoning. And it was just my go-to almost every night.
Well, fun fact, that's basically my dinner for tonight, so I
Really?
already now feel like an
There
athlete,
you
so
go.
that's fantastic.
That's awesome.
So as we're gonna kind of shift from this past season, your nutrition, your fitness, which is that's I know I feel like now I need to go and work out, so that's great. So that's really inspiring for me. Thank you. We're gonna kind of talk about a little bit about what's next for you.
Mhm.
Um, you're currently unsigned for next season. What does the process look like from your perspective? Like, how does it feel to go into next season with that uncertainty of not having a contract? And like, what are the kind of like, what's the process that you're going through in terms of being able to find what your next step would be?
Yeah, so to be honest, it's very, very stressful. So I know a lot of people are feeling the same way. I'm kind of reaching out to girls that I've played with before, or even just spring hockey girls I played with, and they're all like, "What's going on? Like, where are you at? I'm stressed out." And so I'm very stressed, but that's normal. That's part of the process, I think. And what it kind of looks like right now is just honestly just kind of sitting and waiting. But I have an agent who's reaching out to teams for me and he's doing everything he can to kind of make this as smooth as possible. So I think just waiting to hear from the teams over in Europe again with the time change and everything, it's hard to kind of connect. So it's just been a big waiting game. And I think a lot of those teams are waiting for the PWHL draft to happen before they sign North Americans. So right now I'm just hoping, and I have interest from a few teams, but nothing like set in stone. So it's kind of just waiting to see what jumps at me first.
So I guess how many sleepless nights have you had?
Oh, quite a few. There have been some long, hard conversations with the parents on what I should do, and like I'm pretty sarcastic, so I'm like, oh, maybe I'm teaching next year, like just making a joke out of everything. But I'm trying to stay patient and trust that everything's gonna work out the way it is, because really that's all I can do. I can't control any of these other things, so I'm just trying to trust the process, and everything happens for a reason. So
Yeah, and you can only control the controllables, right?
Yeah,
And this is
exactly.
absolutely not one of those things. As much as I'm sure I know from my perspective, I know I would have loved to have been able to control that, but
Yeah.
so I'm assuming you would love the same.
Oh yeah.
But like you said, everything works out for the for the right reasons, and
Yeah.
as long as you continue focusing on your game, focusing on your approach to workouts, fitness, all that sort of stuff, show that you're still into it. Like things are going to work out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You chose not to declare for the PWHL. Obviously, this upcoming PWHL draft is incredibly deep, which
Mhm.
shouldn't be surprising because it's only the second
Yeah.
draft. But this draft class is really incredible. Like from when we talk about like the NHL, I think they said
Mhm.
like the top 20 are great, and then after that there's a drop off. Like there's really no drop off
Yeah.
in this entire draft
Mhm.
class, which is absolutely incredible for the growth of this game. And we're going to
Yes.
talk about your thoughts on the PWHL. I know we talked about it on the first episode, but we're going to talk about that in a moment as well. But could you talk a little bit about what goes into the decision whether you declare or don't declare? And then kind of like what was it about you personally that said, you know what, I'm not going to declare for this draft?
Yeah, so there was obviously a lot of thought in it. I mean, it'd be amazing to play in North America in such a high talented and skilled league. But I think for me, with the season going the way that it did, it wasn't exactly how I had hoped. I didn't get as many points as I would like. The statistics side of it wasn't super great. And I heard, I'm pretty sure that you can only declare for the draft twice. And I declared last year. So there was a ton of factors that kind of went into it. But after thinking with my stats and only being able to declare twice and everything, and I do want to come back eventually, I thought it'd be good to get one, maybe two more years under my belt in Europe, hopefully improve the statistics, work on that offensive game, become more of the complete defensive player again, and just really focus on that and then have a better chance at coming back and getting drafted in one of those situations.
Who did you talk to when it comes to the, because this is a big decision, right? Like there's a lot of factors that go into as you had mentioned, addressing what things you could improve on to help better your drafting odds. And obviously it's one thing to get drafted, but the other thing is also to actually get the contract and stuff like that. Who helps you make those decisions?
First, my agent, we've had some talks about, he knows kind of my end goal and he knows that it would be hard this year. Like you said, there's so many good players coming out of college and declaring for the draft. So it would be hard to get that, to get drafted in that. And then again, just my dad kind of talking through the pros and cons with him and going through how I played personally and how I want to play. And coming back to a PWHL team, it would be great to come back, but I also want to be somewhere where I'm going to play and get a lot of ice time, hopefully. So just kind of weighing those options. Like if I did put in for the draft and potentially not get drafted or go late, do I want to go maybe be a seventh, eighth D? Or do I want to try and stay in Europe, maybe be a top 4D somewhere and just grow that offensive game again and then try and come back and then maybe crack the top 6? Like you never know. Obviously everyone's goal is they want to play and do that kind of stuff. So that was just kind of where my head was at, but it was hard because I had to be honest with myself. I had to look at my game and say, do I think I have a chance? And so after talking with my agent, he's like, it's going to be hard with the way that things kind of went. So he's like, unless they expand or whatever, we just talked about every kind of option. And I think the end was just go back to Europe and then see how things kind of unfold from there.
Maybe it's a fault of mine, I guess, to some degree, but I feel like there's actually a bit of a silver lining in this. So the fault of mine is being, trying to find the positives in every situation, which is kind of annoying for some people sometimes. Like, dude, like, come on, man, like, it sucks. But as you were talking, I kind of thought about the fact that, up until this point, I don't know how to say this eloquently, but ultimately there wasn't necessarily this sort of drive,
Mhm.
right? Like there was like, okay, like I've finished my college career. Now I'm going to go overseas. I'm going to play. And that's how it ends, right? Now there's like that bigger end goal, which is for a lot of players. And I would say more and more every day, the end goal is now the PWHL,
Yeah.
right? And that motivation to be like, you know what? I'm not where I want to be because I'm not going to be as successful in that space. So now
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge myself to go and, stay overseas, as uncomfortable as it may be to be away from family. But at the end of the day, it's going to help me to be better so that when I get drafted, because it is a when, not if.
Yeah.
When I get drafted, I will be in that top four pairing. I will have bigger minutes, bigger. I'm going to be able to have a bigger impact. Is that kind of maybe part of what's kind of going through your mind as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think going through college, like you said, it was just kind of like, okay, what's next? Or most people's careers end after that. And then with the PHF and everything, I was like, nope, now there's stuff for women after college to play. So even the PHF overseas and now the PWHL, there is like a motivation, like you kind of said. And I would always joke with my brother because every kid wants to go to the NHL. And I would always say, like, why don't you try harder? Like, you could go to the NHL. Like, why don't you put in all this work? But for us, it was like, where do we go? But now we have that same drive. It's why don't you work harder? Why don't you do all this? Because you can go play hockey for a living. So I think that's kind of my mindset now. And I loved being over in Europe. Like I got to travel, I got to do all this stuff. So it's not that I would necessarily, I'm like, oh no, I have to go back. Like there is, like you said, positives. So I think going over there, really focusing on my game, and then hopefully coming back eventually when I feel confident and I feel ready that I can make an impact in that league.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by sports nutritionist Melissa Buffunos of MB Performance Nutrition. As a former competitive hockey player turned nutritionist, Melissa's mission is to help the next generation of hockey players optimize their health and diets so they can perform their best on and off the ice. Ready to dominate on the ice? Melissa's new course, the Hockey Nutrition Blueprint, is opening soon. If you're serious about learning how nutrition can impact performance and building actionable nutrition strategies based on your unique needs as an elite hockey player, get on the waitlist today. Learn more and sign up at melissabuffunos.com/course. That's MELISSABOUFOUNOS.com/course. Thank you to Melissa Buffunos for sponsoring this episode.
And now back to the show.
Well, trust me, when I see your name on the draft list, I'm going to be super excited for it. So, and it's when,
Yes.
not if, it's when.
Yes.
So, speaking of the PWHL, we discussed this a little bit on our first episode together. But now that we're, as of recording this episode, we're on the eve of the very final game of the playoffs, final game of the inaugural season, which is
Yes.
crazy. And I reflect on it, and for me personally, I can only imagine how it must have felt for you, but for me personally, this has been the most incredible experience I've ever had. And it's I'm like, does it have to be the final game?
Yeah, I know.
It's been a great season and everything, but I don't want to let it go.
Yeah.
I want to kind of get your thoughts on this season. And I was listening to an interview today with Cheryl Pounder, and she actually, at the end of the interview, she had mentioned she's actually looking forward to basically not having these types of conversations anymore, where it's like, oh, tell me, oh, it's the first, first this, first that.
Yeah.
Like now we can just talk about the game. So, so indulge me. The next time we talk, it won't be about the first.
Yeah.
But I think it's important also, it is cliched, but it is important to kind of reflect this first season, these first playoffs. Like you can't have scripted a better, as much as Minnesota may not have enjoyed the last game, certainly didn't enjoy the last game. You couldn't have scripted a better playoff scenario. Could you just talk a little bit about this season overall, and maybe speaking about the playoffs as well from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's been amazing. I mean, there's so many of my former teammates that are in that league. And so not only do I get to watch it on TV, I get to see kind of the behind the scenes from them on social media and such. So it's really cool to see both aspects of it. But obviously it's such a high paced game. The skill level is so high. Like it's awesome to see it all kind of come together and unfold the way we all hoped it would unfold. And I think obviously the fans, like that's amazing. That's incredible. And it's just, like you said, it gives something for the younger generations to look up to. And I think watching, like, I know I played with like Lexi, Agia, and Jessica DiGirolamo and all them. So to see them all out there, it's like I'm like so proud of them and happy for them. So I think the games have been unreal. I tried to get tickets to Toronto, but they're sold out like instantly when they were still playing. And I think the playoffs were crazy, like you said. It couldn't have kind of went a better way. The last game was insane, and having that energy and seeing how involved the fans are and seeing all the emotions from the players, it's just been awesome. And I'm excited to see where this league continues to grow.
Yeah, and we're starting to see, obviously this is a hockey podcast, but we're starting to see those other additional leagues, the Northern Super League with the women's soccer just
Yeah.
starting. So I think now that everyone's seen just how successful women's hockey is, it's now no longer. I saw a tweet that said it's no longer essentially it's no longer a charity; it's
Mhm.
an
Yes,
investment.
I saw
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I read that and I was like, "Ooh,
yeah, that's
that's
good. Yeah,
yeah, that's good. That couldn't be
yeah,
more accurate." And I think we're
yeah,
starting to see that now. So
yeah,
yeah, it's just been such an incredible experience. And I can only imagine how much more this would mean to someone like you who
mhm,
never thought that this opportunity would be in her future. And
yeah.
now it is in your future.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of social media, again with the segues, so I appreciate this. Set me up perfectly
Of
every time.
course.
Yeah, yeah, this is great. You have such a presence on social media, and it's beyond just like posting reposting a game day, like, hey, it's game day kind of
Yeah,
thing. Like you're actually engaging, and you create these really great reels and all that sort of stuff. You're and it's always really great, and you're whether it's you personally or you're doing a fundraiser or
mhm.
speaking about charities or what have you. What does it mean to you to be able to first of all share all that sort of stuff, but also to be able to connect with so many different people?
I think it's honestly unreal. I don't have any other way to describe it, but it all started as just like a joke, as many people say. But when I started getting like messages from younger girls or even parents being like, my daughter looks up to you so much, like, thank you for posting all of this, or like little girls being like, I want to be you one day. Like that's when it really hit for me because like the PWHL is doing now, motivating people to do that. Like I wanted to be a role model for younger kids because growing up, like I didn't have many female role models who played hockey around me. So I really wanted to be that person for the those younger kids. And I think just being able, like, I sometimes look at the insights and it's like people from Sweden, from like Spain, all these different places following me, and I'll post a video about like the differences between Canada and Sweden, and then people from like Slovakia will chime in and be like, "Oh, here's how we do it here." And it's just like crazy that I can reach people from literally across the world and like show them about hockey, teach them about hockey, like more behind the scenes of my life. It's incredible.
So speak a little bit more about that. Like this is like you're finally, you know, women's hockey, as we've spoken about and is more than evident, is now at the forefront of everything. And for you to be able to share more about your life and just be able to like bring people in to see like, hey, this is the locker room, or hey, I'm on a trip somewhere or whatever, what have you. What does it mean to you to actually, you've kind of touched on it, but what does it mean to you to be able to like bring people in and just be able to like, hey, and people actually like, people want to know more, right?
Mhm.
It's not just like, oh
Yeah.
great, this like, oh, there's another
Yeah.
post I'm gonna skip over. Like it's actually they care and they engage with you.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think the biggest thing for me was like I want to give what I didn't have, if that makes sense. So like when the PHF got shut down and I was like, "Oh no, Sweden, like I've never really heard of the league, like what's it like over there, that kind of stuff." So now so many people are like, wow, I know so much more about the league now. Know so much more about like how hockey works in Europe or the differences in the hockey here versus there. So just putting that information out, because not a lot of people know, especially with women's sports, they don't always get the media coverage that they should. So not a lot of people know about like what a locker room looks like in Sweden, or what the rinks look like, or how we travel and that kind of stuff. So just being able to put that out there and show the like younger girls that there are many different options for you can do. This is what it looks like. So you don't have to go in kind of like blindsided.
Yeah, much like you were, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Um, when we continue the conversation around social media, you had recently posted about the Rickwood hockey development.
Mhm.
I wanted to, learn a little bit more about that, share that story, and how that came to be, and ultimately what the plans are there.
Yeah, so I have my master's in education, and I really think this started to be in the works or in my mind after my internship. I was in a full year internship in an elementary school and a middle school, and like to see those kids every day, and like some of them, like I said, it was like I was their role model to them. I was just showing up every day, being myself, like, and they would like love it. They were like, "Thank you so much." Like the gifts I got at the end of the year, like it was so emotional, and I was just like, I can have such an impact on these kids' lives, just like just existing, being myself kind of thing. And so that's when I was like, I want to like combine this with hockey because I'm like phys ed, I'm going to be a phys ed teacher. So it was sports. So I was like, I want to combine this with hockey. And I was like, there's not a lot of like, in Brantford specifically, there's no female hockey players that do like skills sessions. It's all like men who do like OHL and younger kids and stuff like that. So I was like, I want to do that for younger girls. And again, be that role model, show them you can play college hockey, you can look forward to these kind of things. And then my brother, he's like playing Division 1 at Clarkson too. I'm like, you should do this too. Like you could get the younger guys to look up to you. And so we kind of talked about it last summer, and he was still like, and I wasn't, I guess, confident enough to be like, okay, we're just going to start it. If it fails, it fails. But this summer, he came around to it more, and he's like, let's do it. Like a lot of my friends are doing it. So I was like, okay. So we started to talk about it, and our neighbor plays AAA here. So he was like, he was going to get some of his teammates, and it just started out kind of as like a small thing. Let's go see how it is. And then we made the Instagram and posted the videos, and it started growing. And now we have like, probably, I think we're going to have like 10 to 20 new kids this week just doing group sessions and private sessions. And I have, I think, 3 or 4 group sessions with like 5 younger girls who played on the Ice Cats where I played growing up. And they're just like, we just love it. Like, keep doing this, please. And it's just so nice to see that and be able to pass the knowledge on and really just like give them role models to look up to.
What does that mean to you?
It means a lot. I mean, I love being able to just like see their faces light up, and they're just so happy and smiling, and like hockey's supposed to be fun, and it just kind of gives them that place to go work on their skills. And hopefully I want to be a coach one day or a teacher, one or the other. So I love like passing that knowledge on and seeing them when I go, oh, see, like when you come around the net, do this because this and this and this. And they go, oh, that makes so much sense. And then I'm like, okay, this is why I do it right here. And then I see them like actually put it into play, and I'm like, that's amazing.
All right, and so we're now at the segment of the show, which was you were on early on in this podcast
Mhm.
sort of era, if you will, and previously it was called 20 questions. Now what I've done is the crack team here at the Rinkside Rundown podcast has developed a scientifically proven way to help people to get to know you. Are you
Okay,
ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. What are you most proud of from this past season?
Ooh. I would think my battling through the adversity with all the ups and downs, I still persevered through it, and I made it through the season and didn't look back.
And she's still smiling.
Yeah.
Okay, so during the season, who owned the locker room music and what music was played most often?
That's we actually there were some not arguments, but back and forth about this because some of the Swedish girls would want to play their music, which was like either Swedish music or like house music, I guess you could say, which we don't really listen to a ton here in North America. So then we would be like, well, no, we want to listen to like rap or something. And so there was a back and forth a lot, but it either was like rap or like house music or Swedish music, upbeat stuff. So
Okay. Did you walk away from that being like, this is now one of my favorite, like this is on my playlist? Like this
yes, there
song?
were a few songs where I was like, "Oh, I really like that."
Okay, there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Speaking of music,
Mhm.
if you could listen to only one song for the rest of your life, what would it be? And the caveat to that is it doesn't have to be on repeat, but if you're going to listen to a song, it has to be this song.
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say right now I'm liking the like slower music. So I would say like Stick Season by Noah Kahn or something because it calms me
Oh,
down and
wow.
it's also upbeat. I know. It's a change of pace for sure, but I
Yeah.
think that would be my go-to.
I wasn't expecting that, especially after
Mhm.
the locker room debates that would happen.
I
So that,
know. I'm
yeah, that's
surprised myself, honestly, but
that's good. That's good. It is a good song, so I don't blame
yes.
you. That's definitely a good one. Um, on our first episode together, I asked the same question, but from what do you miss most about Canada? And if I'm not mistaken, your answer was your cat. If I'm not mistaken, if memory serves
Probably.
me, yeah.
That
Um,
doesn't surprise me.
yeah, yeah. I wrote this question and I was like, I think she said her cat.
Yeah.
Um, so
That's
now I'm gonna flip it.
mhm.
What do you miss most about Sweden?
I'm this might be kind of general, but just the like pace of life.
Hmm.
Like here it's everything's so rushed and you get in your car and you run here and maybe that's just like my family, but I know a lot of even the Europeans would call it like, oh, you North Americans are always in a rush. But in Sweden, like everything's so chill. Like there's no like drive-throughs really. It's like you go into a cafe and you sit down and you have your coffee. Like there's no like Tim Hortons or anything. So it was really nice and it honestly just like calmed me down a bit, but I just miss the overall just everybody being relaxed and patient and not in a rush.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's Fika, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Good. Whew.
Yeah.
Memory hasn't left
Yeah.
me yet, so that's good. That's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
It's I think to your point, like it's just everything's just like it's a go 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 go
Yeah.
here. It's exhausting. So that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is something that remains on your bucket list? And this doesn't have to be hockey related. This can be whatever.
I really want to go to Greece. I think after traveling, it was always on the top of the list, but it never just worked in with how much time we had. So I think that is my next year on my bucket list is I really want to go to Greece.
Is there somewhere in maybe I feel like this is a silly question, but is there somewhere specifically in Greece that you'd like to go to, or is it just experience Greece?
Um, I think mainly just experience Greece, but I know like Santorini looks beautiful, so
Yeah,
that's like definitely top of the list.
yeah, absolutely. Make that a priority.
Yeah.
Um, and last but certainly not least, what is something that people may not know about the one and only Emily Rickwood?
Oh, that's hard because I put so much of my life on social media. Um,
First thing that comes to mind.
oh gosh, that I would say that I golf, but now I post about that too. But I do like to golf.
How
Oh, I
how
do
how
skip.
good of a golfer are you?
Uh, I'm okay. I'm trying to break 95 this year. So my
Okay.
brother's, yeah. But another thing is I do skip the dishes for work sometimes here and there. So that's one.
Really? Oh,
Yeah. I'm a
that's
delivery driver. I just love it. I get to pick whenever I want to work. I get to listen to music and that's it. It's like being paid to just drive around.
so. Is that at home or is that
Yeah.
over? Oh, okay. I thought
Yeah, just in Canada.
okay. Yeah, yeah. That's fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I didn't even know that. So
Yeah.
that's great. Um, well, as with the last time you were on, Emily, this has been obviously an incredible experience. I always enjoy chatting with you. I'm looking at the time now; it's almost an hour, and it feels like we just clicked the record
I know.
button. So thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to have you back on again.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. It's always so much fun.
Good, I'm glad. And there you have it, folks. For Emily Rickwood, I'm Chris Sinclair, and this has been the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Cheers.